Oh my god, you guys! I hadn't noticed these yet, but look at all of the melons that I have up there. There's so many starting to form, and a bunch of baby ones all along the trellis. So I'm definitely gonna need to tie all of this back just to keep it a little bit more shapely. I think I'm gonna keep working on this first and tie it up. That way I'm done with this section when I move on to the next one. For that, I need a step ladder, scissors, and twine. Or I like to use butcher's cotton twine. This is the cotton twine that I like to use. I buy it on Amazon. I think this is actually my last roll, so I need to order some more. And I like it better than jute twine. It lasted me a really long time. I built all kinds of trellises. I had a roll in the kitchen, but my favorite thing to do with it is just to tie back vines. So I just cut a really long piece like this. Oh no. And then I just start going around tying these vines into place. You see, like right here, it doesn't have much shape, so I want to bring it back over here. Yeah. I also need to make some more macrame hangers for my melons, but I'll probably do that later this week. And then I'm gonna add another one right here, but I also start winding the vines into each other to give it a nicer shape. Did I just drop it again? Ah. Oh, that looks beautiful. Beautiful. Now I'm going to move on to this trellis. This one is way more wild. Oh my God. Look at how long some of these vines have gotten. This is in a matter of like 4 or 5 days, if that. It might be less than that. And these vines, you can see all the dried areas right here because they had actually died back quite a bit when it was really hot, but I didn't take out the whole plant. I just cut back as much of the dead as I could, and eventually once I put up the shade cloth, it just popped back to life, and now it's going insane. So let's do this one next. I'm gonna start from the bottom up because I know the top is gonna be the most tangled, and also because that way I can just keep tidying it up. Otherwise, if I start at the top, I'm gonna have a lot of loose ends down here. Okay. And one thing I want to make sure is to keep a space right in between the trellis. Otherwise, the vines will start crossing over it here, and I won't be able to access the garden bed from this entrance. And that way it also keeps its really nice shape. When I made these trellises, I made them with just design in mind, where it kind of crosses over, it creates an X, but it's also, where did it go? Wait, where did it go? Oh. It creates an X and it gets full of lines, but I wanted to keep that shape because I think that just looks so whimsical and beautiful. So I grab all my vines, I pull them up, and then I just start tying. And then I do that over and over again like a million times. I think I'm gonna have to take the gloves off because I don't have enough dexterity in my hands to be able to tie the cotton twine without getting it tangled. I just don't like the feeling of the vines on my hands. Sometimes it's a little bit itchy. But without the gloves, I have a better grip on things like this. Oh my God. Wait, there's Armenian cucumbers up here. Oh my God. Oh my, I had no idea there were any up there. Look. Oh. Can you see all these? They're all at the top. Oh my goodness. I don't know if there's any more over there, but this one's huge. Look at this. Oh my God, I need to cut that one down now. I love surprises like that in the garden. Oh my God, I'm so happy. The other day I was telling my husband too, oh, I can't wait for some Armenian cucumbers. I've been craving them so much. And during the summer, this plant started producing a bunch of them, but then it got so hot that it just completely stopped. So I need to harvest those because the thing with plants is the more you harvest, the more they produce. If you stop harvesting, then the plant is like, okay, cool, we did what we needed to do. Whatever fruit is on there now, nobody's gonna take, so let's let it turn into seeds. That way we can re-sprout. But if you keep picking them, it's like, it just keeps making more and more. You know? Oh my God, there's so many baby Armenian cucumbers up here too. Ah! I'm so excited. So let me harvest the ones that I saw up there before I keep going. This one. So did you know that those are called Armenian cucumbers, but technically they're a melon? The only thing is, they're actually a really cool, rare variety of melon. So it tastes like a cucumber, it's crunchy, and it produces well in the heat. I mean, this year, of course, we had hotter than hell temperatures, but usually, even in the hot summers of Arizona, it produces really well. And honestly, I've only been gardening for 3 years now. This August was my 3-year anniversary, and what I can tell you is that I have tried to grow so many different types of cucumbers, and none of them to this point have produced anything really nice and edible except for this variety, the Armenian cucumber. So every year this is the one variety that I make sure to include in my garden, so that if I get no other cucumber, I at least get these. Plus the texture of these, the taste of these is so good, and you can get huge fruit and it'll still taste amazing. Grow these if you haven't already. This would be like one of my #1 plants to recommend to you, especially if you live in hot climates like I do. I think what's actually been helping a lot of these vines start producing again is of course the shade cloth, because that immediately makes it so much warmer in my garden. When I step out into the front yard, or even the portions of my yard that don't have a shade cloth, it's so hot, you guys. It's blistering hot. But underneath the shade cloth, it's blocking out 50% of the daylight, of the sunlight right now. And because the shade cloth is white, it creates more of like a softbox effect over the garden, so that the plants can still produce without getting scorched. And because it's so much cooler, every morning now I see so many bees all over the garden, whereas before I didn't see any bees at all. I think they're coming back due to the cooler temperatures, but I think there's so many right here right now because of the shade cloth. The vines are always gonna want to grow straight up. What I do sometimes is I force them to grow down. That way I can start winding them around the trellis, and it gets nice and full all throughout, and then naturally they'll start going back up again. That's what I've been doing on this section right here, because I don't have any vine down at the bottom. So all of this would be really bald if I didn't force it to go down. By the way, so I think I told you guys I made these trellises right here, right? I think almost every single trellis, except for, yeah, I made all of these trellises. I set up the cattle panel trellises. The only ones that I didn't make were the big tomato towers from Gardener Supply, and those are really good. But anyways, what I like about these is that once it fills out and I start tying everything back, eventually it looks like all of these vines are just floating in place. And that's one of my favorite things ever, because then you have all of these melons and cucumbers dangling down, and it looks so pretty. And because they're so full, it creates this illusion that they're just floating in midair. It looks so whimsical. Honestly, probably my favorite trellises in the whole garden are these. Let me step back. Oh, that looks so much better. So I don't know if you can see this vine right here. It's already starting to curve because it's gonna wanna grow up. And you can see the same thing happening right here where it's starting to point up. So what I do is I come through and I just keep winding it, forcing it to go down. And I'm gonna do that all the way until it reaches the floor. And then I'm gonna flip it around and let it come all the way back up. And then all of this will eventually be super nice and thick and lush like the other trellises. Now I have space to go like this, space to go like this, and that allows me to reach in and harvest whatever I need in between the trellises. This is my favorite one so far. It's the exact same style. All of these that you see right here used to be cucumber melons that unfortunately did not make it. But over here I have so many melons. These are the macrame hangers that I've been making. These are made out of clothesline that I'm repurposing. Look at this one. Oh, so pretty. I've got another one right there, and then if you look right here, there's so many clusters of them, and even more starting to form. And the reason I like to use these is because technically the vine could just hold on to it, but once it's ready, it'll just drop it. And if I'm out of town for whatever reason and it drops onto the floor, that's gonna be the perfect meal for all kinds of animals. So whenever it's ready, it'll let go from the vine, but it'll have this macrame hanger right here to catch it. That way I don't have to worry about my fruit getting spoiled. And it also makes harvesting so much easier for me. So I'm gonna do the same thing where I'm just tucking all the vines in and tying things back. By the way, this is also my pumpkin bed. I planted all these pumpkins assuming that maybe one or two would survive. And it looks like all of them loved the shade cloth so much that they're going crazy. Look at these vines. Look at these leaves. I've never grown pumpkins like these. I also went in and I added a lot of foil at the base to try and keep, what are those called? to try and keep the, I forget what they're called, to try and keep pests off of them. I don't think there's any pumpkin flowers yet, but they're gonna start popping through soon. I don't think they'll be ready for Halloween, and next year what I'm gonna do is set up the shade cloth and keep it up as soon as it starts heating up, and that should allow me to plant pumpkins and everything else at the appropriate time where it can actually stay alive without being burned by the heat. One thing that does make me feel a little bit sad is just seeing how bare this section of the trellis is compared to this one. Eventually the vines will make their way over, and I also have some beans that will eventually climb up this area and fill it out. But the reason it's so bare is because this used to be full of cucamelons. They were doing so good. They were staying alive and starting to take over the whole trellis, but the sun took them out. And I started a few others, but I don't think they've really taken off yet. Actually, I planted some over here and they look like they're doing great. So hopefully these start taking off, and then we'll have cucamelons all over this trellis. There's not going to be a whole lot to do over here because all of this is actually eggplant. But I'm just going to do the same thing, just tying all these vines back as much as I can. Actually, I might not have to tie as many of these as I thought I would. I'm just going to have to keep tucking them into each other. And while I'm here, I'm going to take these down. One thing that I have heard about the cucamelon variety, that, well, basically they're shaped like watermelons, like little miniature watermelons, and they're supposed to taste like a nice sourish cucumber. And I think they would just look so beautiful in all kinds of different dishes or in drinks. But the one thing I've heard about the cucamelon is that they can produce tubers underground, and those tubers can keep coming back year after year. And unfortunately, I haven't seen any of mine popping up, but hopefully one day I'll walk out here and I'll just see a bunch of them on the trellis. At least that's my wish. I don't know if it'll come true though. You might notice I have a crap ton of trellises in my garden, and the reason for that is because, one, it helps me to grow vertically. Imagine having all these vines sprawling everywhere. There would be no room to walk, and 1 or 2 vines could fill up the entire garden bed. So by growing them up, I clear up the rest of the space, but also because I think it just makes it look more like a cottage garden. My backyard is like a huge square. The garden beds are squares. Everything's sectioned off into squares. So I like to create trellises to soften everything up and give it more of a cottage core feel. Oh, damn it. And then this also helps me to find all of this fruit, because if it was trailing along the ground, I would not be able to see all of it, and I probably wouldn't get to eat any of it either. And then with the eggplant, I'm gonna put my gloves back on, only because, I don't know, what if there's hornworms? I know that one day I'm gonna be walking out here and I'm gonna start seeing a lot of hornworm poop, and the plants that they typically go after are my eggplant and my tomatoes and my peppers. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna separate any of these grapevines that are starting to climb over. Just like that. And then all of these eggplant, I'm just gonna tuck back. I have a few stakes and bamboo right here trying to create a little wall for them. That way they don't start dangling all over the floor. And then if I see any yellow leaves, I just take those off. I mean, but look how tall these are. Oh my goodness gracious. And they're flowering too, which makes me feel so happy. Okay, there we go. Next, I'm going to tie back my coral vine. Look, this is one of the pumpkin. Whenever I start to see that, I just pull it back down and then toss it back in there, because some of these are going to be giant pumpkins and there's no way that these trellises are going to hold on to them. Even the cattle paddle trellises would probably sag a little bit under all that weight. But this is the coral vine that I started from seed, and why did I get so scared? And my vision was to have this twirling around some of these posts and eventually decorating the top, because they put out some flowers that are so beautiful. They cascade, they're really gorgeous pink, and they just look so whimsical. And you got to be careful though, because in some areas this plant can be very invasive, but here in the low desert it grows well, but it's not invasive because it doesn't have, it's not as happy as other places, you know. Some plants are happy enough to stay alive and grow, and in other places they're so happy that they just start popping up everywhere. This is not one of those. And this I started from seed. So what I've been doing is these last few weeks, it grows about half a foot a day. Look at this. I tied it back yesterday. Up to here, it already grew all of this. So I just keep coming back and cutting it. I'm sorry, and tying it. So right here, I twirl it around one more time, and then I tie it. This plant, I actually had it in a different area of the garden. I transplanted the tubers over here during the winter, and they finally started growing. They're looking so pretty. I think I'm gonna stop for now. Oh, I should have tied this back. No, I'll do that tomorrow. I'm gonna stop for now because the sun's starting to go down and I need to set up all the traps before I run out of time. And I don't want to do it when I'm like stressing out because I don't want to hurt my fingers. Plus, I got a lot done. The vines look a lot more tidy. There's still a lot that I need to prune, like a bunch of the grapes up top, some of my pepper plants. This I need to go through and tie back into place, but I think I'm gonna get to that tomorrow. For now, I'm gonna pause. It's time to set out all of my traps, every single last one. Okay, let's go. I'm going, just this last one. Okay, just this last one. This is called Star Jasmine, and when it blooms, oh my god, it is so beautiful. So beautiful. It looks straight out of a fairy tale. Oh, look how pretty. Okay, let's set up the traps.